Hello and welcome to the session on reputation management, where we will be discussing all things reputation related, why they matter, and helping you to build a business that people want to do business with. I am your host, Regine le Roux. I am the founder and managing director of a company called Reputation Matters, and I look forward to spending the next 30-odd minutes with you, chatting all about reputations. Before we do get started, let me first introduce myself, a little bit about my background, where Reputation Matters comes from, just to position ourselves a little bit better so that you can see why we do regard ourselves as being specialists in the field of reputation management. I studied at the University of Pretoria. I did a business degree in commerce, specializing in communication management. I did my honors, did quite well with that, came top in the class with a cum laude. And after that, I actually, to be quite honest, struggled to get a job, specifically in the communications field, because if you don't have experience, you find it quite difficult to actually get a job in that specific field. So fortunately, I was offered a position as a research analyst. Not a massive fan. I wasn't at that stage the biggest fan of Research Methodology 101, but I thought, you know what, this is a good opportunity for me to get my foot in the door. So let me just see what that's about. So I joined a research company, and it was absolutely magical to see research come to life and not just have to read about it in a textbook. But during that time, we actually did a research project within the IT industry, measuring the reputation of the IT industry. And this was before every second company out there said that they specialize in reputation management. So this was obviously many, many years ago. And during that time, we determined what is it that builds up or breaks down a reputation. And that was an incredibly exciting project. And I was allowed to convert that into a master's degree. And after I completed the master's, I thought to myself, I really still want to get into the public relations and the event management side of things. And fortunately, by then, because I had some project management experience, I did get an opportunity to work at an event management company. So I always say, be careful what you wish for, because it might just come true. So I was slam dunked into a massive, massive event management company where I helped to manage a very large event within one of the townships in South Africa. And it was an amazing, amazing experience. I did realize that perhaps event management wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And there's people out there that love the event management side a lot more than I do. One of the things I did realize was just unfortunately how unstrategic the public relations space was. The communication space was very much a spray and pray approach, very unstrategic. And I thought, I haven't studied all of this time to have they refer to still to someday. Some people refer to it as bunnies and balloons and cupcakes, and that's definitely not what I had signed up for. And I realized then and there that I actually missed the research world, and I identified a gap of bridging the gap between the communications world to make it a lot more strategic with the research experience that I had. So I went back to the master's degree that I had, looked at that methodology and realized there's definitely something that we can take further here. There's a massive opportunity to help the communications industry to find their own voice, to get a seat around the C-suite, as they say, the C-suite being the CEO, CIO, CFO, to be able to speak in numbers, to help show the hard work that does go into a communications campaign. So in 2005, so that's a number of years back, I started Reputation Matters. Initially, we did start as a public relations and event management company. As any entrepreneur would know, you want to just cover all your bills, so you take on all the work that you can. So we did a little bit of everything for everyone. We'll get to that a little bit more a bit later. But we have also, over the past 5 to 7 years, been focusing a lot more on the research side, finding our niche in that space. So that's also something we'll be chatting about a little bit more later. So just a little bit more information on me. I do often speak at conferences across the globe. I was in Amsterdam and Helsinki and Rwanda last year, speaking about all things reputation management related. You can have a massive budget for marketing. You can have the most amazing website, campaigns, adverts, but if you don't have your building blocks in place for a solid reputation, you're going to be wasting your time and a lot of money. I do write for media, and I get many opportunities to share the knowledge within the reputation management space to help organizations to be the business that people want to do business with. I have written a book as well, so keep an eye out during this webinar for an opportunity for a special rate on this book. We love Africa. We do research across the continent. And we've also been awarded a Sabre African Award for research and measurement. And I'm incredibly proud of that, being recognized in this space for the work that we do. I have also been recognized by Rotary International for work that I have done in the public image side of things. But more than enough about me. Let me introduce you to Reputation Matters. As I mentioned, we were established in 2005, and it's our vision to be Africa's go-to reputation research and mentorship partner for sustainable organizational growth. We have this amazing continent, and we need to change the reputation of the continent. One person, one company, one country at a time. So we do believe in excellence always in all ways. We do this through the expertise. So the specialists that we have on our team have all either got an honors cum laude in communication management, or were top of their class, recognized as leaders in their specific fields of study. And the reason for that is when we look after a company's reputation, I need to make sure that I've got the best person looking after your reputation. Empowerment is so important, and it's a continual learning and growth, not just for ourselves, but also for our clients. It's business growth through measurement and mentorship. So it's helping organizations to see how they can build themselves, how they can grow, and to see how we can do that together. Most importantly, making sure that we have ecstatic clients with everything that we do. We have offices in Gauteng and in the Western Cape, but as I mentioned earlier, we actually do research across the continent and globally as well. We have a virtual office space, so for me, as long as the work gets done, the client is happy, ecstatic clients, I really don't mind where my team sits and works. The flexibility of that, I think, allows us also to be able to make sure that we have ecstatic clients. We work very closely with the Institute of Directors in South Africa, who have a very strong position and view on governance, because governance is absolutely key in any organization, and especially when it comes to their reputations. So why is reputation management so important? So there was a very interesting study done. It's a little bit dated now, 2012, but just as important today as it was then. According to a study by the World Economic Forum, on average, more than 25% of a company's market value is directly attributable to its reputation. I mean, that's a magnificent, huge part of your bottom line. That is dependent on your reputation. So which part of your business is building up or breaking down or contributing to your organization's bottom line? So perhaps just also taking a quick step back, why do I say that there's a link between a reputation and the bottom line? What we have seen through the research that we've done is the companies that do have a good reputation, people want to buy their service, they want to be, or product, they want to be associated with that brand. So they're willing to spend their hard-earned cash on that company's specific product or service to be associated with that brand. So the more they have a good reputation, the more people want to be associated with them, the more they want to spend money with this company. The same, obviously, as soon as you've done something dodgy, people don't want to come anywhere near you. They're not going to spend any money with your organization. So there is a direct link with having a good reputation and your bottom line. I also just want to add that I think it's also just important to clarify that reputation management isn't crisis communication. So perhaps just a quick explanation on why I say that. With a crisis, your pawpaw's already hit the fan. It's too late. You're sitting with a drama, a crisis scenario that you need to fix. So crisis equals being reactive. You now need to come up with a solution. You need to do damage control. You need to make sure that everybody has been informed. So there's a massive amount of stress around a crisis. If you do proper reputation management, continuously monitor the environment, making sure your stakeholders are happy, understanding your stakeholders, proactively identifying possible risks, you will mitigate crisis scenarios. So reputation management is a lot more proactive, and you can plan for a crisis a lot better. So crisis, reactive, reputations, proactive. Right, so just taking another look here at the reputation management is not crisis management. What we'll do, and we often get asked, so why is reputation management important? What can you do with it? Well, we'll help you to quantify your reputation, first of all. It's to measure your organization's reputation using our proprietary scientific research tool, the Repudometer. And we'll take a little bit of time shortly to take you through each of those specific building blocks. It gives you bragging rights, because imagine you can say your reputation is 89% or whatever that percentage is. That just confirms and it builds your credibility. It shows that trust that people have. So percentages prove the extent to which people want to do business with you and how much they trust your offering. We help you to then also identify specific areas, key areas for improving your relationship with your stakeholders. We measure that strength of your relationship with the stakeholders, the people, the entities that are important to your organization, and also to help you find ways to build even closer connections with them. Because that's a really important thing when it comes to reputation, building that trust, building that relationship with the various stakeholders. And then rectify. So it's quantify, identify, and rectify. So with rectify, it's helping you to we'll help you to come up with recommendations once we've quantified and identified what those gaps are, to provide you with practical solutions to take your reputation to the next level. It's not about just data dumping and saying, okay, well, your reputation is shot. Here are the results, good luck. But it's actually helping you to prioritize and to then see what should we be doing first and focusing on as a matter of priority. So what is reputation? So here's where it gets quite fun. And a reputation is all about consistency. You are either consistently good or consistently bad. Either way, you are building a reputation for yourself. So what are those habits that you have? What is it that you are constantly doing that is impacting your organization's reputation? So let's take a look. Let's start with the first building block. So we use building blocks as a metaphor because you have to have a solid foundation in place when you do build a reputation for your organization. So the very, very first building block that we start off with is the management side of things. Now, what I want you to do while we go through this exercise is perhaps just get a piece of paper and list each of the 10 areas that we're going to go through. So you will see that there's actually 10 different building blocks that we're going to go through. This, in each building block, is divided into 2 sections. So ultimately, there's going to be 10 things that we're going to be chatting about by the end of this session. So on that piece of paper, the first thing, the strategic intent. Just write number 1 and then strategic intent. So let me explain what we mean by strategic intent. Strategic intent is the vision, mission, values of the organization. Now, I know that sounds incredibly boring, boring business jargon. And as a business owner, or if you're busy working in a company, you just want to focus on the business owner selling your product or service, working in a company, doing your job well. But it is really important to take that step back and just to understand exactly what is our vision as an organization. Can you fluently write down the vision of your company's organization? I'll give you a couple of minutes just to quickly jot down the vision. No cheating. Don't go and Google or do a quick search on your company's vision. Just jot down very quickly. Was it easy? Did you manage to come up with it quite quickly and fluently? The reason why I encourage companies and people to start with that vision, it helps you to focus what you need to be doing in your organization. Because as I mentioned earlier, as an entrepreneur, you try and do everything for everyone. That's going to help you very quickly to burn out. But also, your vision is what needs to be the golden thread that needs to be communicated internally so that your employees know what is it that they're coming to work for. You don't want somebody that's just there for a 9-to-5 job. You want somebody that buys into your passion of why you started that business, to understand what is it, why am I coming to work? What's that vision? What is it that we want to achieve? It also needs to be communicated externally so that people know when I invest in this specific company, I know that it is an ethical organization. I know that they are transparent. So it's that golden thread. So give you the part of that as well are the values. Also jot down very quickly, what are the values of your company? Is it easy to think of them, to come up with them? And why the values are so important as well. It helps so much with decision making in your organization. When you decide to take on a project, when you decide to appoint somebody to join your team, having those values in place really just helps you to attract the right people that you want to do business with and that you want to have on your team to do the business with you. I'll give you an example. One of our key focus areas has been in terms of the excellence always in all ways. It's, as I mentioned, the empowerment side of things and then ecstatic clients. But we also have a very strong ecological growth focus where nature and environment is really, really important to us. So interestingly, some years ago, we were approached by somebody who wanted to reached out to us doing some work in the recycling space. And it was an amazing product. And I was very excited about that because I thought it ticked that empowerment block of getting it manufactured in South Africa and job creation. But during this meeting, this was very interesting that this person kept on just talking about what they do, which is awesome. That's always great to find out what they do. But I don't know, I had this niggle just in the way, in the wording and how they spoke about this product. And then it came to the fore that this specific product was actually made in China. And we asked, well, how do you get it to South Africa? And this was actually imported using cargo, the sea, so with a massive boat. being one of the biggest contributors of being very environmentally unfriendly. So we asked him, how do they then mitigate this whole issue of their carbon footprint? And he said, well, we don't really speak about that. We're not going to talk about that. But if we're going to help somebody with their reputation, and ethically they are trying to be very untransparent about things, they're not aligned to the true empowerment side of upliftment, there just isn't a link. It's just not going to work out. And it's rather dodging a bullet then. I mean, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, you don't really want to say no to work, but you also don't want to be working with somebody that you don't resonate with. So that's very, very important from a strategic intent point of view. So give yourself a mark out of 10, having a vision, mission, and values. Don't give yourself a mark for each one of them. In general, if you think that you have a clear vision, you have well-articulated values, you would then give yourself 10 out of 10. So what's that score that you would give yourself out of 10 for your strategic intent? The next component of this specific building block is the operational governance side of things. So what that means, and that goes back to the quote just before this slide, all about consistency. Being either consistently good or consistently bad, but either way you are building a reputation for yourself. And a reputation is built up over time through the same actions. So it is how you do things within the organization. Here we have a look at the policies, the procedures, the governance side of things. So the question to ask here that I want to give you to give yourselves a mark out of 10 is there a standard operating manual of how you do things around here at your company? Is it easily available? Do people do things the same way each time, or is there a slight dip in the service or the product? Are there standards in place? The way that you answer the phone, is it the same that your colleague answers the phone? It's a very silly example, but it's about that consistency, making sure that people have the same experience regardless of who they engage with at your organization. So give yourselves a mark out of 10 when it comes to the governance side of things. As I mentioned, the policies, procedures, and general guide, how you do things around here. The next building block that we look at is the capital, the corporate capital within the organization. So here we have a look at the human capital. And here, this relates specifically to your employees. Do you have the right people doing the right work in the right way? Because your employees are such an important component. They are your reputation ambassadors, your brand ambassadors. They are the people that speak to their friends and families on a daily basis about whether they actually love or hate their job. And I can assure you, somebody's family member is more likely to listen to an employee's complaint than actually being too bothered about an advertising campaign or a fancy billboard. So it's really important to make sure that we have the right people on board. And if we link it to an entrepreneur, somebody that's starting out, I think what often happens here is you kind of get busier and then you just hire people for the sake of hiring them. More often than not, and I've done it myself, so this is one of the business lessons that I've learned, and steer away from getting family members on board. I know it's so easy and it's very tempting, but it's so difficult to tell a family member or your best friend when the quality service isn't quite what it should be, or if they're having some kind of a personal day. It's really difficult to have that conversation when it is somebody close to you. And I mean, it makes family gatherings really awkward when there's some business tension as well. So the suggestion with that, and this is where it comes that the link is so important with your strategic intent. So something I should have mentioned earlier, but also just to mention that the building blocks that we're going through, they are not mutually exclusive. They are interlinked and they all speak to each other. So your strategic intent speaks to your operational, your policies. For example, policy on recruitment. Is there a recruitment policy? What does that the step-by-step look like to recruit somebody new? What does that advert sound like? Are you recruiting the right people? Are you getting the right caliber person to join your team right from the beginning? What does your recruitment process look like so that you can make sure that you are hiring the right people for a specific position? Are there clear job specs in place? Is there a proper induction when somebody new joins the team? And are there regular reviews to make sure that everybody is still performing at the level that's expected of them? Perhaps then identifying opportunities where they're excelling in one area or perhaps require some training in another area. So if you look at your human capital side of things, do you have the right people doing the right work in the right way? So on that piece of paper, write down a number 3 and give your score yourself a score out of 10 for human capital. Part of this as well is the operational capability. So it's all good and well to have an amazing team, but if we're not going to foster them, train them, grow them, help them see the bigger picture of helping to nurture them to become even better, to have a growth plan within the organization, maybe some mentorship or coaching or training programs, having the right tools to do the work that they need to do, things are going to fall apart as well. So write down number 4 on your piece of paper and give yourselves a score out of 10 for if you think holistically about the training or the mentorship or the coaching provided at your company. How are you doing out of 10? The next item that we look at is the performance side. So this is more the financial element, which is also an incredibly important factor for a reputation. Here we have a look at the value offering. And here it's potentially more, I suppose from a more traditional point of view, if you had to think of the different P's for marketing, product, place, positioning, and promotion, this would be the product side. So why would people spend their hard-earned cash on your specific service or product? What makes it unique? So I'd like you've got 8 words. In 8 words, jot down, what is your company's unique selling proposition? Now, you're not supposed to, and I'm going to encourage you not to write down our quality, our service being the best, because I can assure you that's exactly what your competition has written down as well. So what makes you, your organization, the product that you have, totally unique and different from the competition? How easy was it to write down those 8 words? I know sometimes people can write it down quite easily. I've seen people write down 1 word. Some people's written down, I'm sure some people are actually still writing down a couple of words and writing a whole paragraph. Now the question I'm going to ask you, you don't have to do it right now, but if you were to ask the receptionist, what would her 8 words sound like? The newest person that's joined the team, what do their 8 words sound like? What do the 8 words of the person that's been in the organization the longest? What do their 8 words sound like? What does your partner's 8 words of the company sound like? And the reason why that's important to get an understanding of everybody's 8 words, that is what's being communicated internally and externally. That is what's impacting how you are perceived within your organization or your company is being perceived. Because remember, a reputation, it's not necessarily the truth, but it's somebody's reality. And it's that reality that ultimately becomes the truth for that specific person. It becomes their worldview. So that's why it's so important to make sure that you have a very clear vision, values, value proposition. What is it that we do around here? Having that communicated during the induction, having that during training sessions, to continuously, consistently making sure that the message of who and what you are as an organization is communicated. So write down block number 5, your value offering. If you think of those 8 words that you wrote down, how easily did that come to mind? And comparing it to the other people that you imagined, their 8 words, out of 10, how do you think your organization is doing with the 8 words? The next part of the corporate performance is the business results. So here, taking a look at the ethics, the transparency when it comes to the financial management of the organization. So when we do measure a reputation, we are not auditors, we don't look at the finances, but we do have a sense, we do ask questions around, and the stakeholders have a sense whether the finances are being managed in a financially responsible way. We've all seen it at organizations where massive bonuses are being paid to the CEOs, and then not much longer afterwards, we see that there's retrenchments and they cannot even pay minimum wage. Now that's a massive gap, massive issue, and that's obviously going to impact how that organization is seen and their reputation. So the business results is how ethically the organization is seen to be looking after the finances side of things. Something to mention here as well for the entrepreneurs on the session, specifically looking at being registered with the taxman. It's so important to make sure that you have the right financial advice, guidance, making sure that you have the right accountant in place to help you with all of that. When I started Reputation Matters, I went through quite a few accountants, couple of them trying to be colorful in the way that they did their accounting. The only thing that ends up being colorful is your language when things aren't in place. Making sure everything is in place and in order right from the beginning is incredibly important. The next building block that we have a look at, so just before we do actually go there, write down block number 6 on your piece of paper. And if you think about the transparency and how ethically the finances are being managed in your company, give yourself a rating out of 10 for that. Then, as I mentioned, the next and the 4th building block is the positioning side of things. So here we need to have a look, who are we doing business with? From a strategic alliance point of view, who are our partners, our suppliers? And this again links back to our strategic intent. Do they share our values? So if we are selling a specific product, is it locally made? Is it locally sourced? Or are we importing it and having a rationale around how do we choose our strategic partners? And as I mentioned, do we have the same values in place? And I mean, here we can also even look at companies when they sponsor sports players. We've seen how incredibly quickly sports stars sponsorships are pulled the minute they do something dodge, because their values, once you do by association, the sports person, for example, that's doing something wrong is invariably then being endorsed by this organization. So that's why the organization pulls the sponsorship so incredibly quickly, not to be associated with that specific behavior. So it's very important to make sure who you align yourselves with is also representing your organization. Part of this building block, so before we go on to the next one, so give yourself, write down block number 7, and how, if you think of your strategic alliances, the people that you do business with, out of 10, how do they score? Part of this building block is your corporate social investment. So how are we sustainably giving back to the community in which we work? Now, this is quite an interesting one, and I've had very interesting conversations with people around this block, where in the past, some clients have said to me, you know what, we don't really need to ask around this because people just want to know that we deliver a specific product or service. Yeah, that is true, but more than 80% of the research that we have conducted, people want to know that they are working with a socially responsible organization. So it does impact your reputation. Now here it's also very important that you don't do CSI, that you don't do invest in a charity purely for marketing purposes, purely just to greenwash or to be in the local paper. There's nothing worse than seeing a photo with a massive check of the sponsor standing in front of a school or a creche or a hospital, which is great. They need the funds, absolutely. I'm not saying don't invest there. I'm saying rather use it as an opportunity to profile the school so that they can potentially get even more sponsors. It's a lot more interesting to hear the human story around the school or the creche or how this community is impacted instead of just hearing about the money and seeing the large check displayed. So do you have a corporate social responsibility project that is aligned to your values, that's aligned to what you do? So I'll give you another example from our side. For years, we didn't have a strategic CSI plan at all. It was quite unstrategic, unfortunately, and it is what it is. And I did also realize that impacted, just the thinking around that element of it. Not that we didn't do anything. It just wasn't very structured. So we'd either go and plant trees, or some team members would go to the pet haven, it's all great initiatives. But there was always something niggling for me. It didn't quite resonate with what we're doing in the research space. So what we've done in the last 2 years to be a lot more strategic with our focus in this specific area is, in South Africa and in the community in which I stay, we have a massive computer illiteracy. Many people have cell phones, but so many of our community members have actually never sat in front of a computer. So we've started with a computer training course where we're training up people that's never had an opportunity to work with Word or Excel for 2 specific reasons. Firstly, helping them to actually write a CV to get into the job market, but also teaching them how to data capture for us. So when we do have larger projects, they then come on board and they help us with the data capturing that we need for research projects. So we're training them in the research space for data capturing, and so also doing an empowerment of our local community. And it's just so heartwarming. For example, we've recently had a Joseph in Stanford joining the team who a year ago had never sat in front of a computer, and now they are doing data capturing. We speak to each other via Skype video, just also seeing the impact of that side of the education and being empowered to do something different and being open to be in the job market as well. It's just such a fulfilling project. So if you then write down number 8 on your piece of paper, your CSI, does it link to your focus of what you do as an organization? Give yourself a rating out of 10. So there are 4 building blocks here, and you'll recall that I said that we have 5. So there is a 5th one. It might be a little bit look abstract, but this 5th one actually ties it all together. This 5th big green building block is the communication that glues this all together. You'll also recall I said these blocks are not mutually exclusive. So they are all interlinked, and communication is absolutely crucial to bind them all together. Internally, we need to make sure that our employees, our human capital, are all on the same page. They need to be so fluent to know exactly this is the vision and the values of the organization. Any decision that I have, these are the values that guides my decision. These are the policies and procedures of how we do things around here. I have a growth plan in this organization. Our value offering, these are the 8 words. These are our partners, and this is why. This is the reason why we are investing in the community. This then guides us into the external communication. What needs to be communicated outside of the organization? And this external communication is then your website, your social media, your public relations, your events, your pamphlets, your flyers, your advertising campaigns, all of those things. Very often, companies look at starting with the external dialogue, doing the external stuff first, without taking a look at these internal blocks, first of all. So write down number 9. How fluent are your employees, your team members, when it comes to all of these specific building blocks? Give yourself a score out of 10. And then write down the number 10, external communication. How aligned is your external communication to these specific building blocks? Because these building blocks also guide you what needs to be communicated to each of your different stakeholders. Because interestingly, each of your different stakeholder groups are going to have a different perception. Ideally, in the ideal world, everybody should be on the same page. But different stakeholders are going to want different pieces of information. And where there are gaps might be impacting how they communicate about your organization to others, and might then also have an impact on your reputation. So what I'd like you to do now is quickly take out a calculator, and where you've listed 1 to 10, tally up all 10 scores for yourself. So to keep things easy, it's going to give you a score out of 10, out of 100. So you've given yourself a score out of 10 for your strategic intent, for your vision and mission, out of 10 for policies and procedures, for having the right team and doing the right thing in the right way, having mentorship programs and growth paths, your 8 words for value offering, being transparent and ethical for your finances, people you do business with, and your CSI. Your internal dialogue, everybody being on the same page, and this all then speaking to your external communication. So all of this forming your reputation. How did you guys do? What was your score? I'm very, very keen to hear those scores. So interestingly, just to show this to you, of all the studies that we've done, the benchmark is 77. So anything above 75, which is regarded as a cum, as doing really well. So here, how did you guys measure up looking at all the different areas? So what we do, and I think you'll find this quite interesting, when we do the research, we then ask 3 or 4 questions, and I think you'll find this interesting. We ask 3 or 4 questions for each of these specific areas, and we then ask that to your different stakeholder groups. So, for example, employees would have a different view, as I mentioned earlier. Every stakeholder group is going to have a different view of the organization. So what we do, we then send out the survey either electronically or face-to-face, or have people completing it manually, and they give us their perception. So we use statement-based questions. So for example, do you agree that reputation matters, builds businesses that people want to do business with? Do you agree with that statement? And then we have a 4-point scale of either totally disagree with that statement, you agree with that statement, and you totally agree with that statement. And we use a 4-point scale, basically 4 to choose from, because that forces people into a direction. Because we have found that, for example, if you give people a 5-point scale, that if they're not too sure, they'll go the middle route, we get a neutral answer, and we don't really learn that much from it. We also include don't know statements. So if somebody doesn't know about something, it gives us an opportunity to identify that gap even further, to help see where can we help bridge any specific gaps. And with that, we ask, I don't know, it is important for me. I don't know, it isn't important for me. Because you don't want to be spending time and resources on something that really isn't important to somebody, and they don't know and they really don't care about it. So what's quite cool, and I think you'll find this quite interesting, is first of all, being able to quantify your reputation. You'll recall at the beginning of the session, I said it would give you bragging rights. So to be able to have an understanding of all your stakeholders' perceptions of the various aspects of your business, quantifying that, being able to sit around the boardroom table and say, our reputation is this percentage, whatever it may be. In this specific case study, obviously it's 89%, which is really great. And we also provide a heat map. So the more this blue dot is towards the top right-hand corner in the green sphere, the more in balance, the more unified the organization is across the various building blocks. Those building blocks are very much united. Everybody's singing from the same hymn song. Everybody's fluent with all the different visions and values and areas of the business. So this gives a lovely representation of how the organization is doing. But to take it a step even further is to providing a dashboard. So we love dashboards. We love being able to quantify things. So having the 10 different areas that we've just worked through now versus different stakeholder groups, seeing exactly at a glance what is building up or breaking down a reputation. So in this specific example, we had a new CEO on board for the specific company that we were working for, and he was very keen to get some media exposure. And at that stage, we were still doing quite a bit of media liaison and public relations work, and we were very excited to help profile him. But we do also prefer to be a lot more strategic, that it's not just a spray and pray, sending out a press release for the sake of it. So taking a step back so that we can be strategic, putting a very comprehensive communication plan, strategy and plan in place. We encourage them to do research, which fortunately they were open to doing and having that in place. So when we started this exercise, what was very interesting, the CEO was really quite obsessed that his shareholders need to be questioned, and he would have been quite happy if we only asked the shareholders for their inputs. With a little bit of encouragement, and I actually found it quite interesting that we had to really fight to include employees in the survey as well. He was quite adamant that the employees were happy and we didn't really have to worry about them. But fortunately, after some time, we included employees. So when we presented these results back to him, obviously shareholders, because they're getting all of his attention, they were quite happy. Understandably so, they decide whether he remains there or not. But what really surprised the person was just how unhappy the employees were. And with this, we could see that the internal dialogue, obviously there's a new CEO on board, there's insecurity, job security, there is, is my position safe? And then also just training, general things around training that was picked up. But what was also very interesting, we had included unions in this, how unhappy they were with external communication. So before we sent out any media, this CEO went on a roadshow so quickly to go and engage with his employees, speak to them, give them confidence in terms of where the company is going. Also, interestingly, they were worried about the operational capability, so the training, the mentorship, the tools, and they actually have an amazing training facility and opportunities for employees, but it wasn't communicated properly. So that was also a whole campaign that could then roll out around the different training opportunities that the MD also then spoke about in his key messages. But before that, also speaking to the unions, because I mean, having a look at this, they pretty much had a strike on their hands And it would have been absolutely disastrous if we had sent out a press release announcing this new CEO, and the next minute there's a strike because the employees aren't being heard. They're very frustrated and insecure about their jobs, as I've mentioned. So with this, we were fortunately proactive, as I mentioned earlier, being reputation management specialists, looking at the being proactive so that we didn't have to be reactive with the crisis. And then being able to dig down and to see exactly how these percentages are faring. As I mentioned, anything above 75, we can be comfortable with. Anything below that, we need to have a look and dig a little bit deeper and see, okay, where do we need to go and focus and prioritize first? Because what we often see as well, there's a big focus and need to communicate and liaise with stakeholders. But where do you start? It's such a daunting exercise, and there's just so much that needs to be communicated to so many people. And through this exercise, it helps you to really focus and see where you should start, what to communicate, and how to do that. So this really is quite a powerful tool that you can use to build your company's reputation, the communication strategy, the plan that needs to roll out, and then to measure it year on year to see, okay, we had, for example, a 53 here. How are we going to get that to at least 60? What actions do we need to take? And then to have very practical, implementable recommendations that we provide that your team then implements. So we do recommend not doing research anything sooner than at least 8 months, 8 to 12 months ideally. Do an annual research survey every 12 months because that also gives you enough time to make the changes and for the changes to take to already have been implemented for a while, so that people can actually be able to give feedback on something. If there's too many surveys, I think already there are so many surveys out there, and you don't want to give your employees and stakeholders survey fatigue. So rather make sure that you maximize the time with them. So who are some of our clients? We do work across the board for large and medium-sized, but the purpose of this specific session as well is also to help entrepreneurs and startups where to start with building your company, your company's reputation, building a business that people want to do business with. As I've mentioned, when you invest in your research with the Repudometer, you're also investing in the community. And these are this was actually our very first pilot. Every single person, there were 43 of them that signed up for the session, completed it. And here's Stanford and Joseph data capturing for us. It was such a wonderful moment after this. So with this session as well, I'm very, very excited to introduce you to our new offering, the Reputation Mentorship Program. So we are looking at empowering people within the communication space, people who are starting their own businesses, to build a reputation right from the beginning. As an entrepreneur, where do you start with building your reputation? If you're new in a communications position and you just need a little bit of mentorship and guidance, this is the program for you. So we want to empower you and mentor you to take charge of your organization's reputation. So the first option is the Building Blocks Mentorship Program. And this comprises actually of 7 different areas, 7 modules. It does say 10 here, but that is also just includes the consultation times. So during these 7 modules, we'll drill down into the nitty-gritty of your company's reputation, build a robust reputation strategy and plan. You'll get weekly assignments for each of the modules to help you identify and bridge gaps. You'll also get consultation with one of our reputation specialists. If you just need to soundboard something, or if you've identified a gap and just to see how you can bridge this, you have one of our team members that will be building a relationship with you to help you and guide you through this process. And then, as mentioned here, the unlimited access to advice and support. So the program includes, as module 1, we'll do a reputation health check for your organization. Then module 2, what is the business's strategic intent and aligning it to your communication strategy and plan. So we've touched on it very briefly here. So when we do delve into the different modules, you'll get a workbook that you will then complete at your own pace with assignments, just to help you to put things in place and to help you take your business's reputation to the next level. And you work at your own pace. And it's all about mentoring. And during this as well, what we'll do is we'll also help you to set some SMART goals. So to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound goals, to help, so it's not just doing stuff for the sake of it, but to make sure that we make a meaningful impact to the work that you are doing as well. As we've mentioned, it's all about consistency. So let's work on your standard operating procedures. Then module 4, we're having a look at do you have the right people doing the right work in the right way? Then we're going to have a look at your company, how fluent it is in the value offering. So that exercise you went through with your 8 words, we're going to dig deeper there. And then we're going to do an exercise of understanding your different stakeholders that you communicate to, be it internally, externally, making sure that you're using the most effective channels of communication and sending out the right messages. And then from there, putting everything together and building a comprehensive reputation management strategy and plan. Then we've got the skyscraper option, which is support for 12 months. And again, it's about building that relationship and ongoing support so that we can also mentor and guide you through the program. It includes the mentorship program, so as per the previous option. It actually also includes a full-scale research project using our proprietary research tool, the Repudometer, where we will then measure your reputation on 3 stakeholders and 3 segmentations. So you would then get the dashboard, you'll get the heat map, you'll get the recommendations. So that's a full-scale implementation of the research, so that we then can use that for the rest of the year to guide what needs to be done where. We will then help you with the stakeholder mapping, identifying exactly who the stakeholders are, how we're communicating to them, what the messages should be, who, what, where, and how. We'll then help you to develop a communication strategy, as well as the plan, help you to implement that. So just to clarify, we will help you to develop that. You will be doing the implementation side. We will guide you through the whole process, but you will be doing the work. This program also includes a communication policy. So in terms of communication when it comes to social media, does your organization have a social media policy? Who can speak to the media? How quickly should you reply to emails? What does a telephone greeting sound like? So it's digging quite deeply because into how we correspond with people. We also include a crisis communication strategy and plan. We will be a lot more proactive, having a reputation strategy and plan in place. Crisis situations still happen. Things do still happen which aren't in our control. So we will help you to put a crisis communication strategy in place. A detailed project plan, mapping out each milestone above to deliver over the 12 months. So some months might be slightly busier than others, but it is also helping you to implement each of the above. We'll have monthly meetings to discuss each of the deliverables, and then again, unlimited access to reputation matters, our advice and support. Then we have a third option for you to consider, which is also over 12 months. And this is again the mentorship program. And here we'll provide you with templates for you to complete the key reputation management documents, which are the strategy, the communication plan and development, the communication policy, and the crisis communication strategy and plan. So how this one differs from option 2, option 2, we will develop the communication strategy and plan for you and you will implement it. With option number 3, we provide you with a template, you complete it, and we'll guide you along the way. So there's a lot more that you will be doing, populating it from your side, opposed to us helping you with it. A detailed project plan to map out each of these milestones above to deliver all the above over a 12-month period. Again, monthly meetings, guidance throughout the month to help you complete each template. So it's a hand-holding exercise. So we're not just going to push you into the deep end and say, here's the templates, good luck. But you will then complete the template and work through it, and our consultants, our specialists, will then help and guide you and also help and brainstorm ideas of what you can do. And then again, unlimited access to the Reputation Matters advice and support for 12 months. So there will also be more information on this through the webinar. And we do have a launch special for you, which is incredibly exciting. And yes, when would you like to start? I'd love to hear from you. Pop me an email on mentorship@reputationmatters.co.za or research@reputationmatters.co.za, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for your time, and yes, have a wonderful, wonderful day.